bring out Frank. He is a best-selling author and New York Times columnist. Frank Bruni is over here. Frank. How are you, sir? Great pleasure to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Okay. Well, Frank, I've wanted you here for a long time, but not more than lately, because you have written two columns that were such music to my ears. The first one was called "I'm a White Man, Hear Me Out." What about this new phenomenon that as a white man, somehow we're just disqualified from being in the debate, and somebody's got to speak up for the white men without the tiki torches. I mean, we still have something to offer.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, we'll talk about it.
All right. No, I wrote that because there are a lot of debates that happen these days. I mean, you've listened to them. I think you've commented on them, where you get the message that if you are not part of a minority group, if you haven't suffered in that exact way, you can't possibly be empathetic and you can't possibly understand. And I think that's one of the things right now that divides us. I agreed with just about everything Reverend Jackson said. I'm a white person. And that needs to be acknowledged, that I'm not the enemy. He's not saying I am, but often, you know, you go on Twitter, it's of course easy to talk about Twitter because it's such a flea market. But you go on Twitter and you see this sort of oppression Olympics, where if you are not as oppressed as I am, then don't tell me you can be on my side. What I said in that column, I'm a white man, and so, you know, a lot of people say you have nothing to say. I'm also a gay man. Right? So that brings about this assumption that I have some experience with. But you know what? My being a white man, thank you, Bill. We're seeing each other after the show. Yeah.
Why? Has something changed? No.
In you? No. No, I mean, I am white, and I need to be cognizant of the fact that certain privileges, utterly unearned, have come with that. Right? I am gay, and so I understand perhaps what it means to be an outsider. Neither one of those things tells you anything about my character, right? My character is what matters, not what category I fit into. A category isn't a credential.
Right. So you quote Mark Lilla.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is Mark Lilla?
He's a Columbia University professor.
Okay, I should know him better if you know him. Okay, so, and he wrote this great thing. He kind of summed it up. He said, we're kind of confronted with this demand, you must understand my experience, and you can't understand my experience, which does put us in a crazy position that we can't possibly fulfill.
It gives you no real estate to stand on.
Okay, so the other column you wrote that I really loved was called "These Campus Inquisitions Must Stop," and I've been on this page for many, many years.
I've noticed.
Yes, and and I was myself disinvited to speak at Berkeley before they re-invited me. And it just seems to me like what you learn at college for maybe $60,000 a year is that if you can find anyone anywhere who is less sensitive than you can get them fired. Because the best person is always the one who censors the most things. And this is tearing this country apart, I think.
I agree. Well, I wrote that column specifically about something that happened at Evergreen State College. I think maybe some people know what happened there.
That's in Washington, right?
Yeah,
Washington.
there's something that happens every year there called the Day of Remembrance, and it's a day devoted to racial healing, and usually black students voluntarily leave campus to have discussions and all that about that sort of stuff. This year, someone suggested that maybe white students should leave instead, and a white biology professor said, you know, I don't like the sounds of that. That feels to me like someone suggesting segregation. Now, you can agree or disagree with what he said. What came back at him for simply kind of, you know, putting that out there for debate, what came back at him was that he was a racist, that he was a white supremacist. This was shouted at him. You can see the videos on YouTube. He had to stay away from campus for a while. He has to be allowed to bring up a point that's utterly worthy of debate without confronting those sorts of slurs. And when I wrote about this, interestingly, one of the responses I got from a reader was, so many of the black students at Evergreen have experiences of suffering and all that. Why are you wasting your sympathy on a white man? And literally the reader wrote, he's white, he'll be fine. That's the kind of thinking that I think is so divisive and destructive and that we have to do away with.
And it's also the kind of thinking that got whites, which are still 69% of the country, I think, to vote like a minority in 2016.
I think
because many of them felt like they were being treated that way, which is insane because they're not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is a big problem the Democratic Party has to face.
Many Trump voters were absolutely out and out racist, but some, I think, were frustrated with these things that we're describing right now. I think there are a lot of people out there of good heart, who want to be able to have a conversation about all of this without feeling like they're stepping on eggshells all the time. And I think right now we have a world of eggshells.
Exactly.